there guys, it is Alice here on this sunny day in Seattle, and I'm going to spin and see what topic we're going to talk about today. Let's do it. Okay, I've been wanting to talk about this. It is labor stories. Okay, what I mean by labor stories are other people's stories about childbirth, labor and birth. And oh gosh, I am putting out a big warning about this, that if you are pregnant, expecting a baby, then I want you to be super aware of the stories that are shared with you or that you expose yourself to when you are pregnant. I like to compare, this is kind of a sad comparison, but I like to compare labor stories to that typical idea of a war story. If you think about someone who's gone into battle and they're sharing their story about how hard it was and how difficult and the pain and the just trials and tribulations that they have, and maybe things are expanded upon or not remembered correctly. This same thing happens with labor and birth stories. For some crazy reason, when you find out you're pregnant and you start telling people that you're expecting a baby, there is often an influx of stories. I'm talking about from coworkers who want to tell you about their 48-hour labor. I'm talking about from the cashier at the Walgreens checkout that wants to tell you about, what happened, the tragic thing that happened in their labor. It's like, for some reason, people feel compelled to tell you some of their most difficult stories. And some of the biggest oversharers of birth stories are family. So what I really suggest, and I like to tell my doula clients and my childbirth ed students, that I want you to protect yourself from some of these negative stories. So if someone starts going down the road of some negative stories and you think, I don't know how this is going to benefit me, you might just say something like, I know you want to share your story and I would love to hear it, but if you can just wait and tell me after I have given birth and we can talk about it together, that would be so helpful, because I'm trying to keep all of my stories, one's positive and educational, and I'm trying not to put any kind of fear into my preparation for labor and birth. So it's kind of difficult, but I really suggest it. Also, don't expose yourself to the stories. Now, it didn't used to be so hard prior to Google, but nowadays we can Google anything, and there are tons of birth stories, birth videos, birth vlogs online. Make sure that you are exposing yourself to things that are positive and educational. That's really my recommendation. You can start going down a very negative rabbit hole in birth forums and on vlogs that really can be detrimental to your mental health as you prepare and get ready for labor and birth. Be careful about those. And the last thing about negative birth stories and labor stories is that a lot of times people who gave birth a long time ago, they remember their birth very differently than I think it actually happened. So if your mother or your mother-in-law tells you that they were in labor for 2 hours and they had no memories of pain, just take that with a grain of salt, that time changes things, and sometimes we don't have the most accurate idea of how, or memory of how things go. So it might be better to trust someone who's given birth more recently than someone who gave birth many decades ago. So keep that in mind. Now, on the flip side, a great, inspiring, positive birth story can be lovely and very, very good just to listen to and help prepare for what might happen in labor and birth. And even hearing a story where there might be complications, but told in a positive way and an educational way, I think can be really helpful. And right now there's a podcast out from my dear friend who is a doula and a Lamaze childbirth educator up in New York City. And she has a podcast called Birth Matters NYC. And I'm going to put a link down below. And she has birth stories. It's all birth stories, but they are really positive. They are educational. And they're really the kind that I think will prep people for labor and give you a good idea of what might happen in labor. So check that out if you're someone who does enjoy listening and learning from birth stories, and you will be on the road to having some positive stories in your future. So thanks for joining me today, guys. Let me know your thoughts, and if you like to tell or listen to labor stories, down in the comments below. And don't be afraid to like the video if you liked it. And I'll see you next time on the Big Wheel of Birth. Thanks, guys. Bye.